Welcome to another Ask Me session where I answer your questions about strategy, operations, data, and evaluation for nonprofits, foundations, public agencies, and other organizations that provide education, human, and social services. I'm Tamara, your sidekick, here to help you create a bigger impact with less sacrifice. Our first question today is, our database has some incomplete data issues in it for a bunch of reasons. A volunteer has offered to help us fix the issues and requested a copy of the data. They want us to export the data from the database for them to analyze independently. Am I off base by feeling weird about this? What should I do? So first off, no, you're totally in the right to be thinking that this may be an issue to be worried about. Anytime you have to share data with anybody that's not staff in your organization, it's something that you should take a minute and think about for privacy and confidentiality concerns, for ethical concerns, but also just procedurally data sharing issues. So first, I would ask yourself whether this is necessary to have somebody outside the organization do. So is there staff inside the organization that has the capacity to do this type of data analysis in order to identify what the issues are and then actually create the fixes? Because if so, that's going to be your safest bet. Now, of course, there's going to be time concerns in terms of, do they have the time in order to do that work? And so if they have the capacity to do so in terms of the skill set, and you don't know how much time they have, then I would meet with them and talk through maybe a plan for long-term fixing of the issues. Most of the time, you're proactively identifying issues and saying, okay, well, can I fix this just in case I need the data in the future? Or we're able to deal with skipping those particular data elements temporarily, but we do have some lead time before we can have to report on them. So map it out over a few minutes. Maybe say how much time they're going to be able to dedicate to it over a few months, when they would be doing it, being aware that this would be replacing some other thing that they would normally be doing. So spread it out over time and break it into smaller tasks. So maybe the first task would be to review a particular variable or data element, and then a separate one, and then identify all the issues first, and then come back together and meet and say, okay, these are all the issues. Now let's go about it potentially as a team or with multiple people so that all of the issues can get fixed over time. So don't feel like just because you found an issue has to be resolved immediately. Of course, there are situations where you would have to fix them immediately, and then you might have to prioritize and say, given the importance and the impact of these data issues, what else is lower priority, so that you can switch out what your team members are working on in order to put the data fixing as a higher issue. Now, if you know that you really trust this volunteer and they have the skill set, so those are two big qualifiers, then it's not bad necessarily to share the data with them and have them do the work. But first, definitely check that they have the qualifications in order to do these analyses, because giving a volunteer something that they don't have training in is not necessarily a good use of their time or your time. Also, figure out your data sharing procedures. Typically, if you're going to be sharing data outside of the organization, you're going to need some sort of agreement in place so that you're all on the same page around expectations of what they're going to be doing, how they're going to be using the data, and what data they're going to have access to, and how you're going to actually share those data with them. So make sure that you have a secure way of transferring the data if there's any identifying information in the data set. But, you know, take a few days or a few minutes in order to strip identifying information so that they don't need, for example, names or birth dates if that's not necessary for them. Those would be things that you would probably want staff to be dealing with because they already have rights to the data. But also be concerned about what you said from the beginning when people gave you information about them, what you said you were going to use it for. If you didn't say that you were going to be sharing the data outside the organization, then you shouldn't. So stripping identifying information may not be sufficient in itself, but considering these, so what I said was, what's the permissions that the people gave you when they gave you the data in order for what you use, because you may not have consent in order to share the data, how you're procedurally going to share the data, having a data sharing agreement in place, having a secure technological procedure so that you're not just emailing the file, and also making sure that the volunteer is qualified and prepared to do the work in a way that's going to be of high quality. So good luck, and hopefully it works out. The second question, the nonprofit I work for wants me to do a survey of stakeholders, including donors, program participants, volunteers, and others, to learn what they think about our organization and our work. I haven't ever created a survey before. Can you share some recommended questions to ask? So first of all, surveys are hard to make. So I'll just warn you that if you have never made a survey before, then unless this is a skill set that you're planning on developing and building over time and having it be part of your career, I would look to someone in your organization that has survey experience and training in order to have them create the survey. But knowing that you are the one to do the survey, the purpose of surveys is to collect data to answer your questions. So first, think about the purpose. Your purpose, you say, is to learn what they think about our organization and our work. So perceptions of your organization and your programs. First, what kinds of perceptions are you talking about? Are you thinking about satisfaction? Are you thinking about what they're aware of? Are you thinking about what they know about the programs that they are aware of? Is it just a reputation of, like, when they think of you, what do they want to know, or what comes to mind? So get more specific on why you want this information. If you're going to be using it for marketing purposes, so just communication, like you want to create a communication plan, and so you're saying, I want to know what people already think of me so that I can either re-educate them or expand awareness, then it might just be as simple as 1 or 2 questions, like, have you ever heard of blank organization? If so, what do you know about it? You could just have very simple questions, but try to keep your questions as straight to the point of what you want to know as possible, but don't presume that people know anything. So don't presume that they've heard of you. Don't presume that they have thoughts about you, because it's very possible that you've never crossed their mind. Now, if they've donated to you, you might ask questions like, what inspired you to give money to our organization? Or what were you hoping for when you gave money to our organization? If you're trying to go more in the fundraising route. You might even ask specific questions around, what message did you see from our organization that inspired you to give to us? And that might help you to identify what to say more of and what to say less of. So really, questions themselves are driven by purpose, and keep them as simple and clear as possible. I really recommend, after you draft the questions, to not only have someone else in your organization just take a look at them, because you'd be amazed how differently different people read the exact same thing, but also ask somebody that doesn't work in your organization, maybe a friend of yours or a family member, to look at them too, because sometimes the context of the organization makes you fill in gaps that help you to understand something, whereas someone who's really separated doesn't have that kind of background filled in, and so they look at your question and it doesn't make any sense at all, or there's like, wait, what program are you talking? What do you mean by program? And they can help offer you some other words to use. So great, that's it for today. I will be here every Monday, so submit your questions using the form that's in the description for the video. If you like this video, make sure to hit like, and you can subscribe to this channel in order to get every video in your feed. So see you next week.